Hi, John Hoffman with Tampa Home Group with July's 3 burning questions. And if you like what you're hearing, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe because it really helps the channel. So the first question that I had a client just ask us was, John, what exactly is the deal with the as-is contract? So the as-is contract really was created in the mid-1980s when Florida passed the disclosure law where sellers had to disclose any known deficiencies in the property. And since then, it's become a very popular contract. The spirit of the as-is contract is a buyer can come in, do their due diligence, and they can cancel for any reason. This really became popular in 2008 to 2010 when there were so many bank-owned and short sales and not a lot of property disclosures. But it's being used a lot today. What we tell folks is, on the as-is contract, if you're a buyer, you're really going into this with the anticipation of wanting to buy the house and not asking for many repairs. But we understand that if there's a 4-point issue, leaky roof, electrical hazard, that you have every right to ask a seller to make that repair. But the seller's position is they're selling the house as is, and they're going to get a little irritated if the buyer asks for a lot of repairs. So as a buyer and a seller, you might be asked to make some repairs from the buyer, but at the end of the day, if you're a buyer and you're going to want to have a bunch of little repairs done, you might want to switch to the more traditional contract that asks for the seller to be obligated to make repairs in categories of open permits, structural mechanical deficiencies, and WDO. But that contract does not give the buyer the right to terminate for any reason. The second question is, John, we plan on putting our home on the market in September. What steps do we have to take before we get active? Which is a great question, because as a homeowner, if you have a little time to prepare to go on the market, that is very advantageous. So with us, what we want to do is come preview your home and help you eliminate as many negatives as we possibly can. So if painting might need to be done, landscaping, carpet, multitude of little things, get estimates, declutter. The Tampa Home Group, we have an interior designer to come in and help you with the decluttering and also doing some staging if that's helpful. Because in today's market is that the house that has the least amount of negatives, be as move-in ready as can be, it usually wins. Now, the other thing that sellers are going to need to know is that if you've got a 19-year-old roof, odds are you're going to have to put a new roof on if it's a shingle roof, because it's almost impossible to get insurance today with a roof that's over 15 years old, unless you have a roofer that says you've got at least 5 years life left. So going through this process really is less stressful, gives you the time we can get additional estimates, and you can actually ease into going on the market fully prepared and getting top dollar. We just had a buyer come in for a buyer consultation and asked us, I'm going to be selling this in the next 2 or 3 years. Should I buy or rent? Which actually is a great question. And the interesting thing is there's a few different answers to that. If you're going to be buying a house and you might have to move in 2 to 3 years, the one thing we're going to want to look at, would you ever consider it being a rental? And does your purchase price and payment allow you to be a rental? Because at the end of the day, if you're going to be upside down without taking into consideration management fees and vacancy factors, probably doesn't make any sense to buy. Now, the other reason why it might not make sense to buy is in today's market, we're seeing a slight pullback in pricing, nothing like 8 or 10% a year, but in the next 3 years, your house might be a little worth less than you paid. So you might end up having to bring money to closing. Now, we can look at that in more in depth based on the house to give you the best advice. So it might make sense to buy, it might not make sense to buy. It's really going to be dependent on the personal situation, but we strongly suggest that all buyers take that into consideration before they buy today. At Tampa Home Group, if we don't think you should buy, we're going to tell you you should rent. Because our job is to give you all the information you need to make the best decision for you or your family. I hope that helps. Thanks for tuning in.